All right, it's 5:05. I feel like we can get started here. Um, Everybody on our call, on our team ready?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. And if any stragglers come in late, I ask that wait, although they're not on now. We will be going through the different segments throughout this presentation. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to submit them. There are going to be several pop-up questions that we will be having throughout this presentation. We ask that you guys take your time to answer them, and we're going to have a full Q&A session after this presentation. Looking to present about 40 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A session for as long as we realistically need. This meeting is being recorded, and we will be posting the meeting for review afterwards. I'm sure that the county will be posting it as well. So again, thank you again for joining us, and let's dive right in. So we are working with the Rockland County on a county-wide trail to try to promote health and wellness along the riverfront as much as possible. We are going from the New Jersey state line all the way north to Bear Mountain Park, and we are working with the local leadership to try to accommodate as much as we can with this. There's been several different parts of the project where we've taken on, I don't want to say pet projects, but additional items that we've been trying to help out. The known problems in certain areas, regular improvements along the corridor, and we're trying to go mile by mile and make sure that we are addressing the needs of the communities and the needs of the residents. The whole purpose of this is to be able to have a nice guided trail using a lot of the existing infrastructure that's there rather than clearing through forests and through developing a trail from the ground up, which would have significant environmental impacts. We're trying to enhance a lot of the items that are already here, including wayfinding and other items. We have a pretty large team of people that are working on this, only some of which are on the call today. Myself, I am the engineering lead for the project. We have Jay Glucksman here, who is my right-hand man at McLaren KCI. Jenna Nazario is really the director of the whole project. This was her vision, and she's helping us bring this to reality. Adrian Cantor is going to be presenting for Arch Street. We have a lot of people from Arch Street on the call that are helping in the background. They've done a great job running all of our workshops and the public engagement. Some people who are not here that are instrumental to this is Weintraub Diaz. We have Giovanni Diaz working on the project with us. Max Stack, he is doing all of the work for the environmental in the background, as well as, permitting. And Kirsten Jackson is, I would say, probably Jenna's right-hand person with this. Special mention to Dawson Bloom, who is my vice president, and he's assists us throughout the way with all of this. A lot more people that I have not mentioned that have helped out with this project. So this project we've broken down into 5 phases. Right now, we are in phase 1 and phase 3. Phase 3 is kind of happening in the background. There are going to be some components of that we will touch on, such as environmental justice meetings, where we will be having different hearings with that in the coming future. But right now, we're at the preliminary engineering stage, which is 10% designed and a little bit past it. We are finishing up our survey of the project sites and the whole corridor, and we are working to make sure that we take into account all of the community feedback that we've received thus far, and we'll continue to do that until we move on to our 80% drawings. Once that is done, we will move towards a final design with the project. Construction documents and everything else will happen afterwards. These are really just engineering terms with this, but suffice to say, we are at the early stages of this planning, and we are flexible if people have comments, critiques, or additional items they'd like to see with this. With the approach, with what we're doing, we have a number of items that we've set up with this workshops. We have this meeting, and what we've actually done is just pushed back our in-person meeting to try to get a little bit more attendance. We do understand that, it's a summer and there's a lot of people that have a lot of activities. So we will be having another meeting in September in person where we can present these same items and also update from where we are. We will be having 50 and 80% design drawings that will also be released to the public, where we hope to integrate all of the public feedback that we've received thus far into those drawings. And then, like I mentioned, with the environmental review items, we have the seeker process through New York to make sure that we are considering all the environmental impacts. And that's kind of what has already driven us in a lot of the items that we've already talked about and reviewed with this. As you'll see as we get into the segment design, certain decisions that we've made, design decisions that we've made and are recommending, are based on environmental impact and also costs. We all want to see this project get built. There are 11 segments that will be built and bid out individually, based on funding and constructability, and just difficulty to permit. And we want to make sure that all of these items are included in the environmental review. With that, we will have this environmental justice public hearings to make sure we are accounting for all the different community members and different demographics of people who might want to use the trail. That includes handicap accessibility with everything. So our designs are going to be shovel ready. And what that means is that we will be developing these plans for release next year, so that we can work with the county and the individual municipalities to build each of the 11 segments. We do realize that some of these segments might drag on longer than others. They might be a little bit more complicated, and funding to build these obviously has to be determined. Some of these segments require a lot more work than others, and getting funding for that might take some time. This is something that Jenna and Jenna's office are going to help work on after we get all of these items developed. But we are planning to have all the segments done, at least the majority of them done by next year, so that way they are ready. If something takes a little bit longer, we will work with the county to make sure that all of the items that are holding that up get completed in a quick manner. A lot of amenities that we are considering: improved signage, signalized crosswalks, some of the solar lights that can help, at mid-block crossings if we have any. Widened shoulders. We are looking at sight distance. We're looking to put vegetation and plantings in where it's appropriate, whether it's for screening or for just beautification of existing trails. Benches, bike stations, widened sidewalks, actually installing sidewalks where there are none. And, something that we've heard from residents already, and something that we had heard from when we were talking to people, and this is something that we didn't necessarily know before we started this project, is that e-bikes have become much more prevalent. And this is something we're trying to consider throughout the whole project, is management of e-bikes. So that way it is not only enforceable, but people understand that, e-bikes are a different animal than regular bikes. And just one thing I wanted to note with this trail, we are trying to cater to the average person with this. We are trying to cater to a little bit of everybody. This trail is not meant to be a thoroughfare on any of the segments for commuters. This is not meant to cater towards large cycling groups for high speed. They have other existing trails. This is meant to be, families and couples, individuals, anybody who wants to come out and use the trail in a safe manner. We're looking to improve accessibility for all of those people. All right, Adrian, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. So public outreach is now taking place, as John has already talked about, on the Rockland Riverway Trail project, and we're really eager to get your input. As John also has already mentioned, we're at the 10% design phase, so this is really a great time to be hearing from everyone and hearing what you're thinking about, what your priorities are, and what you have questions about. We just concluded our fourth walking tour yesterday, the route between Haverstraw and Stony Point, which represents segments 6 and 7. Additionally, we also have a project website. You can see the link on this slide at the bottom, www.rockland-riverwaytrail.com. This is a great place to find more information about the project and to sign up for information for the future. We're now in the first of 2 public meetings. The second one will be in person and will take place in September. So So as I mentioned, we concluded walking tours yesterday. We also had three other walking tours. The first was Orangetown, Nyack, or pardon me, segments 1 and 2, Piermont, Grandview on Hudson, which was segment 3, and Stony Point and Route 9W, which were segments 8 and 9. We've received a lot of really useful feedback that will contribute to the design and to our providing information of about the project, so that everyone is well informed about what's going on and how the project is going to continue to evolve. You can see some of it summarized here. Safety on the trail, especially at intersections and in areas that tend to flood. That's extremely important to folks. Community members are interested in educational interactive signage, and community members want to continue providing feedback throughout the trail design process. We also learned about specific areas that of concern because of either safety issues or privacy issues, and we've had an opportunity to share information about treatments for both. Additionally, we are able to provide answers and clarifications to many questions. And so we would love to get your feedback during this presentation, and get your questions. So please capitalize on this opportunity. You can see at the bottom of your screen a button that says Q&A. Please enter your questions here and submit them. And at the end of the presentation, the panelists will provide answers. So anyway, we also have questions for you. John mentioned that we would be doing some polling throughout this presentation. There are several poll questions that will be coming up. And this is, you can see on your screen now, question number 1. So in this case, we'd like to know, how often do you use existing portions of the trail? Would you say daily, several times a week, several times a month, several times a year, rarely, or never? So please take a moment to think through your answer and select your response. It's completely anonymous. Once you've made your selection, please be sure to click submit at the bottom. We'll keep the poll open for, as I say, for about a minute. If you don't see the poll window, please check if it's hidden behind another open window, or let us know in the Q&A so we can troubleshoot. Thanks very much in advance for participating. We'll share the results shortly.
I think we can share the results.
Yeah, I think so too.
Great.
So it looks like 40% of you are using the trail daily, which is great. And another 40% use it several times a year. And about a fifth of you are enjoying the trail already 20%. Pardon me, several times a month. So thank you very much for your feedback. That's really helpful to know and will contribute to our understanding of the use of the trail.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. And thank you, everybody, for participating.
Thank you.
So our first segment is in Spark Hill in Orangetown. And this goes, like I said, from the New Jersey state line up to Highland Avenue, where segment 2 starts. This is a state road. So the DOT runs a DOT is really the entity who controls the improvements that we are able to put on here. There's a number of DOT improvements that are actually ongoing concurrently. Specifically, the Oak Tree Road intersection is being upgraded by the DOT. We do not have the design plans for that, so we are somewhat bound by what we can do in that area, but we know that they are improving that for any residents who would be concerned about that. What we're planning for the area south of Oak Tree Road, from where the trail starts to that near the Lamont Observatory and everything else, is going to be widened shoulders. We had and some increased signage. We had talk with the DOT about possibly putting in some sidewalks in this area, but due to the number, like the limited number of residents in this area that would use that and the difficulty of the terrain, we have rock cuts that are exposed on either side. We'd have to do some blasting or chipping away. It'd be pretty expensive, loud, and environmentally just difficult. With that combined with the fact that we don't believe that there's a lot of residents that would use that specific portion, we felt that widened shoulders would be better. This will provide an area able for people to walk and ride bikes or push strollers of any kind. And this is going to be a common theme throughout a lot of these areas is widened shoulders, improved safety measures there, just something that is a lot more attainable and something that is more usable in those areas. Sidewalks have to be maintained and they can get very expensive to maintain when nobody's using them. So these are things that we have looked at with this. We are going to have connections to some of the other parks in the area, other trailheads, the country club here. We're looking to improve the drainage anywhere where we go. We want to make sure that, we are reviewing the culverts that we're crossing over and make sure that they are in good shape. We are looking to improve the drainage on the path itself, making sure that nothing is going to get washed out as part of this, and that we are being good neighbors to all the residents' houses that we cross in front of. Some of the other improvements that we've talked about are warning signs, limited sight distance. As you saw on the previous slide, there's quite a bit of a curve, and we want to make sure that people that are using this trail on either side of the road have safe ways to access it. So crosswalks, obviously with the Oak Tree Road intersection and all the problems there, that is going to be addressed. There's a number of other areas that we are going to improve the crosswalks, both the signage and with the addition of detectable warning strips. Those are accessible warning strips that are placed on sidewalks to notify people that a road is coming and that there's a hazard there. One of the things that I ask all of you is to write in any recommendations for additional opportunities to connect. We have a lot listed here. Trust me, there are quite a few more that we have, but for the interest of time and space on the slides, we tried to condense this as much as possible. Some of the notable ones in this area are the Lamont Earth Observatory, the Long Path, Tallman Mountain State Park, and the country club in Skunk Hollow. There's a lot of other items along this, and if there's anything that you would like to see us try to connect to with wayfinding signs, these are signs that are placed along the trail directing people, as well as interactive activities, please let us know. Segment 2 picks up on Highland Avenue where segment 1 ends. And this is going through downtown Sparkill into Piermont. This is a slightly challenging section due to the fact that there's a number of businesses here, and there are a lot of existing sidewalks and roadways. However, we have very, very narrow right-of-ways. One of the initial plans of this project was to try to navigate people down Valentine Ave. What we realized is that it's not really possible. There'd be detriment to the existing homeowners in this area, and we do not want to have impacts where we don't need them. So what we're looking to do, we've met with the mayor, and we're looking to try to come down Union and Main Street instead. We're going to improve the existing sidewalks. Right now, there are a number of telephone poles that are located in the middle of these sidewalks. We're going to be working with utility companies and the village and the town to try to move these and widen the sidewalks as much as possible. Again, we're going to have improved crosswalks. We're going to have improved signage, and anywhere where we can improve anything that's right in our path, we're going to do that. Drainage, other items, traffic control measures, things like that. At the end of this segment, where we have the connection to the Joseph B. Clark Rail Trail, there is a number of improvements we're going to be making to that intersection itself with enhanced signage. We are also looking to close the current entrance to the Joseph B. Clark Rail Trail and direct it at a 90-degree angle. That trail crosses at a diagonal across this intersection, and from an engineering perspective, it is a hazardous situation for us to review it versus what it could be. So we're looking to try to improve that, to just improve pedestrian safety and bicyclist safety through that area. We are not planning major intersection improvements with this. That would be require a separate project, but we have talked about what that could look like with the town, and they are going to be looking into that with us more as we progress with this. It's a little bit interesting just due to the fact that this is kind of a blend of municipalities here and multiple people own different parts of it. Again, a lot of different opportunities connecting here. Spark Hill restaurants, all of these types of businesses that are along here, we're hoping to try to include them in the wayfinding and include them in, just driving traffic. This is good for the community in the fact that it is going to bring people to them, provide a safer path down to these items, and just help the economic environment for everybody in the area. New curbs and curb ramps and crosswalks are really going to help people. And if we can improve the intersections and the usability by moving poles and signs that are currently in the sidewalk, we really do feel that this is going to be a boon to the community. So we have another question. Adrian, I direct you to.
Yes. Thank you, John. So this is the second polling question, and it is, what features would improve your experience on the Rockland Riverway Trail? This is an opportunity where you can select all that apply: seating, directional signage, interpretive signage, and that includes historical, cultural, and scientific information, shade or protection from the sun, and scenic overlooks. And so a reminder that you should check all that apply, and we will keep this open for about a minute. Thank you all for your responses. This is great.
Say we can probably share the results.
Yeah, I think so. So it looks like 40% of you are interested in seating, 60% are interested in directional signage, also sometimes referred to as wayfinding. 80%, that's a significant percent, are interested in interpretive signage, information of historical, cultural, and scientific information. Protection from the sun also got 80%, and scenic overlooks got 80%. So thank you very much.
Great. All right, so segment three. Segment three is unique to this project as it is extremely close to residential houses. This is an existing trail, the Joseph B. Clark Rail Trail, that travels up through here to Nyack from Piermont. There are a number of existing challenges along this trail. We have several crossings, where this trail crosses local roads that are misaligned, that don't have traffic control measures, that don't have safety measures and pedestrian, improvement options just to let people know that they're crossing, and to just that really can be improved for people that are currently using this trail. There's also a number of wooden bridges and structures along this trail that look like they can be improved, as well as some drainage items that we've noted. There's a lot of improvement that we can make to this area. One of the big things that we want to try to do to this corridor is improve screening. All of the residents that live along this, some of the items that we've heard are that there are a number of concerns due to the fact that people that are using this trail can see in people's houses. And I just want to be upfront and honest and say, we are looking to address these items. We can add trees, bushes, fences, a number of items to try to improve the aesthetic for the trail itself and to improve people's privacy. And this is something that we care a lot about. And the second most is the drainage into people's yards and across the trail. We want to make sure that we are protecting people's private property with this. And, being engineers, this is kind of our bread and butter. This is what we do day in, day out, is to make sure that properties are protected from runoff, the extreme storm events that we're starting to get. One thing I wanted to reiterate that I mentioned a couple slides back was that we are not looking to make this a thoroughfare for commuters, e-bikes, anything else. We specifically on the trail segments, the road segments, if people are using e-bikes, it's not really a problem for most people. We want to try to, when we're working with right now the different municipalities and the county leadership to try to come up with ways where we can successfully manage e-bikes. We're looking at calming measures. We are looking at, having flashing type signs if somebody is traveling at an excessive speed. We don't want to discourage the family. I'm going to use a personal example. My mother-in-law takes my kids with her electric assisted bike because she is old enough now where she needs that to ride with my young children on different trail segments. We want to make sure that that is still acceptable, but we do want to discourage the people who are trying to use these trails for commuting and or just joyriding. E-bikes are quiet, and traveling in excess of 20 plus miles an hour can be a danger to, or a hazard to other people that are utilizing the trail. So this is forefront to our mind, specifically segment 3 and segment 5 and segment 10, where we are going through, quieter trail segments where a lot of different demographics of people could be using it. We have some suggested improvements for all of these items, including that dry wells for different control measures for drainage, low maintenance screening, improved cleaning of existing drainage structures, ditches. We want to minimize the disturbance. We are not looking to widen this trail unless there's a safety concern. Some of the different intersections with the different roads as this crosses, we might look into realigning just to make sure that we have safe crossings, improved signage at those areas. And not specifically on this portion of the trail, but on some of the other trail heads, you'll see different wayfinding signs to other businesses. There are a couple cut throughs to different businesses here, and we are looking to try to promote those businesses to make sure that the community is benefiting not just from the trail improvements, but from the economic improvement. So some of those connections, that we're going to be making, Piermont Downtown District, like I was saying, the Piermont Pier and the park, St. Thomas Aquinas College. We are also working with on a number of other projects, the Revolutionary War encampments and the Mario Cuomo Bridge pathway, where we will have direct connections to. All of this is done to improve this existing trail section for all of the existing residents that live in the area. We believe are going to be the primary beneficiaries. Segment 4 is interesting in the fact that we don't have a lot of major improvements in this area. Nyack and Upper Nyack actually recently went through some major upgrades to their infrastructure, widening roads, new sidewalks, new intersection improvements. So there's not a whole heck of a lot throughout the primary trail here. What we are looking to do with this is actually split traffic. This is one of the only areas where we are splitting traffic with bicyclists and pedestrians. And that's just due to the fact that we want to make sure that on North Broadway, we're promoting a quieter aesthetic. And everybody who's going to be walking there, it's a little bit flatter, it's a little bit easier to go down, and we've got somewhat, I don't want to say narrow road, but because of their sidewalk there, it's better suited for pedestrians. Whereas we can take the bicyclists on an alternate path to go down and meet up with them later at segment 5. This is going to help also connect the faster bicyclists who are going to be bypassing this through Old Mountain Road, where the existing state bike route is, back to 9W. So we have like 3 different parts of this. One of the things that came out of discussions with the mayor of Upper Nyack is Old Mountain Road needs some improvements. There is kind of a sidewalk that's an asphalt sidewalk that goes along the path and leads to a small wooden bridge that needs to be improved, and there's some drainage concerns there. We are working with Upper Nyack to improve that. So we are going to have another connection there to the school as part of this. This is kind of one of those, like I was saying, like not a pet project, but an adjacent project, so we can improve the safety and accessibility for the whole trail. With that, we're also going to be looking at that intersection and seeing if there's anything that can be done with signage or anything else at that Oak Street, and Old Mountain Road. It's kind of a weird angle with the Y, and if there's any increased traffic here, we want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward. So we can review signals and everything else in that area, or stop signs, a four-way stop sign, and or other traffic calming devices that can help. There's another other opportunities that we can connect in this area. In Nyack itself, I have reached out to Andy in the area, and he's going to be coming up with a better list, so we can make sure that we have wayfinding throughout the downtown. Anything that can be improved, we want to be able to do. I know he had expressed interest in trying to have some more interactive signage and things like that, and items with QR codes so people can scan it and get something right on their phone. And I think that that's great, and I think that that is something that we can do as we try to bring everything forward, be more modern with this. So again, no major items, like the crosswalk improvements. Really, this is some earlier items that we had basically said that we don't think we need to do. And then that wooden bridge on Old Mountain Road is kind of one of the big ones in this area. We have another question here. Adrian, I'm going to direct it to you.
Yeah, great. So it's another poll question, and this time the question is, what safety elements would you most like to see along the trail? And again, please select all that apply. And the options are widened sidewalks, shoulders, improved signage or signals around intersections, improved crosswalks, speed monitoring devices, improved drainage, and screening between the trail and private property. So please enter all that apply, all that you consider important, and you have about a minute to enter your selections. And please don't forget to click submit so that your voice is heard.
Cool.
Okay. So I think we've can look at this now, and it looks like most of you were interested in widened sidewalks and shoulders, and as well as improved crosswalks. A lot of you were also interested in improved signage and signals around intersections. And 40% of you were interested in speed monitoring devices, improved drainage, and screening between trail and private property. Thank you very much for your responses. It's very helpful to get your feedback.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Segment 5. So segment 5 is an existing trail here. And this is interesting because, coming into this project, we had a lot of thoughts in what we can do with how the original, project guidelines were sent out with a study that was done previously by others. And once we met with the people responsible for maintaining the trail, they were not as receptive to some of the major improvements here. And that's something that we obviously very much agree with. We want to make sure that the people that we're hearing the loudest are the people that live here and that manage and maintain these trails. So there is a lot of segments that this will apply to, but specifically to segment 5, we are not going to be widening or really improving the trail itself in this area. The Palisades Park Group does a great job maintaining it already. We are going to try to assist them with some improved drainage and other areas where they want. And we are going to consider, limiting other improvements in this area. We're going to have a number of benches that we're going to install. There's a bunch of historic artifacts and items that we can provide signage for, and we're going to provide different opportunities to connect to the different park that's in the area through this. This is one of the things that we did hear from the Palisades Park Group, is that segment 5 is actually a major commuting thoroughfare that they want to discourage the use of the e-bikes on because of the danger that they pose to existing other residents and trail users. So this is something we're going to be working with them on to try to find traffic calming on the actual trail itself to discourage the use of high-speed e-bikes. We don't want people ripping through at 30 miles an hour, disturbing some of the different kids or folks that are using this trail segment. So this is an area where we are considering flashing signs. It is not set in stone that we would do that because that has an aesthetic detraction from the project. But if it's something that's only going to activate when people are traveling at a certain speed, we think it might be worth the improved safety that it will bring. Segment 6 is Haverstraw. We have a number of different trail segments and options in Haverstraw that we are considering, some of which are not all shown. We are also working, McLaren KCI, as well as Arch Street, are working on a number of different projects in Haverstraw. So you might have heard us out and about. One of those projects is the Chair Factory, where you can see our bump out in this area where we have an alternate segment. We are trying to take into account other projects that are being built by others or others that we are also working on to try to accommodate improved path options with this. This is going to get us closer to the shoreline down the existing trails on Liberty Street. And I think it's going to be a major benefit to the project if we're able to do that. However, if that project takes too long, we do have alternate options to connect in the area, where we're going to use existing roadways. We're going to evaluate alternative routes. There's Harbor Point Drive area. There's potential to connect into there. We want to make sure that at Short Clove Road, we are being well aware and safe around the trucks that are going to be coming out of the Tilcon plant. These are all items that we have considered with this project. We are going to have increased traffic safety measures here, and we're going to make sure that we are not interrupting parking. This is one of the things that we had identified in Haverstraw is we really need to maintain as much parking as possible. So we made some changes from that initial study that was done to make sure that we are doing as little impact to parking as possible. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that here. We are also looking to install a dedicated bike lane down a one-way street. So that way, you'd have a half shared in one direction roadway and a dedicated bike lane down the other area on First and Front Street to make sure that we are increasing safety for all the users of this trail. There are a lot of different opportunities to connect here with Emmeline Park, where we want to try to improve Emmeline Park by having a separate trail come into it. We know that it is currently a safety issue for the fire department to try to access Emmeline Park and Donco Keys with the narrow road that's there. So if we can provide an alternate path for emergency vehicles, we are going to do that. And that is something that we're working with Max Stack from Nelson Pope and Voorhees, who represents the village in this matter. We are also looking at, installing, wayfinding signs to connect downtown. As I mentioned, in some of the other segments, bringing people downtown will really benefit the community here, bringing everybody into all the shops. So this is something that we want to do. We also know that, the ferry here, this is something that a lot of the residents in this area might want to use to get to the ferry. It's going to improve accessibility to public transportation, especially with everything in going on in this area in Haverstraw with all the new projects and all the new residential projects being built. Having this trail is really going to help accessibility. So we have another question. Adrian, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Yes, thanks, John. So this is the latest poll. When I use existing portions of the trail, I most often, and please select one of the following options. Use the trail by myself, use the trail with one or two other people, or use the trail with a group which is more than two people. So please select the option that best reflects your typical use of the trail. And we look forward to seeing your responses. Terrific. Well, thank you again for once again contributing your feedback. It's very helpful to see this. It looks like most of you use the trail with one or two other people, but it's almost an even split. So plenty of you do use the trail by yourselves. So thank you. That's really helpful to know.
Great. Thank you. All right. Segment 7. Segment 7 is one that I know that West Haverstraw is very excited about. They are going to be bringing a number of other improvements. I want to just put a special note out there for Peck's Pond. There's going to be a number of items. I mean, Peck's Pond area is already a great area to bike and to visit, and they are going to be doing a number of other improvements to try to improve accessibility from their downtown to that area. We're happy to piggyback on that and try to improve signage through the corridor. If there's any utility poles that we can relocate along this corridor, we're going to do that. One of the things that we want to do with this whole area is really widen the shoulders throughout this whole area. Unfortunately, on Beach Road and a lot of these other areas, we don't have a lot of room. The area is prone to flooding in certain areas. It's in the flood zone, just the proximity to the Hudson River. And there's a number of small bridges as we get through, this segment. So we are not able to improve those bridges themselves, but what we're going to do is try to improve everything up to those bridges and create some signage on either side of the bridge to improve safety in that area. Going to have a number of other connections to this in the area as well. Not a lot of residents that live directly along this, but we do understand that there's parks that people go to, the marinas. People might want to walk down and just be close to the water, and that's kind of what we're trying to promote with this, as well as all the residents that live on either end, because there are a number of residents who live on either end of this trail, and this provides a great connection opportunity for all of those people. Like I said, the Haverstraw Bay County Park is right there. There's Bowline Point Park right on the other end. We have the Eagle Bay. Some of the things we're talking about trying to do with this is maybe improve some fishing spots or try to improve, just the flood management in some of these areas where we're not going to need to widen bridges and things like that. Any other local landmarks, we will identify. There's going to be a small segment of sidewalk installed to facilitate pedestrian traffic and make sure that we are improving safety for everybody that's right there. And, we're evaluating sight distance around certain corners. Segment 8. So where segment 7 ends and segment 8 begins, we know that there's a little bit of a tough area, and I neglected to mention this on the previous slide. There's an underpass rather, where it crosses the railroad bridge. We're going to improve the safety with that by increasing the signage and just advanced warning. Unfortunately, just again, with bridge being such a significant piece of infrastructure, we are not able to widen that. So we have to leave everything as is. Segment 8 is going to be another one where we're doing light touch. We are bringing this through a residential community. We are looking to only provide signage in this residential community. There are public roads. We don't want to have any sidewalks here. We think that this is going to be a great way to connect people so we're not on 9W, but we do understand that there's going to be some concerns from people in this area. We're happy to take any questions about that, and we can speak more directly if you have any concerns with that. Once we get to Park Road at the end of this is an existing road that has a lot of sight distance concerns for us. You can see the curve to the right. It's very steep. There is a drainage drop off in the area, and there's some exposed rock cliffs that I know in recent years there's been some maintenance that's been required in that area. We are looking to provide a protected asphalt sidewalk or path on that side. Jay, you've raised your hand. Would you like to chime in here?
Yeah, and part of this is that we're going to be acknowledging that there's a steep slope and historic area in the form of Camp Bullowa and the battlefield to the north of the site. So we want to
Yes.
make sure that our touch is very light and we preserve all the historic interest in this area and its residents.
Yes. Thank you. With that, as we get up Park Road, one of the other items we're considering is improved drainage. There is a number of residence houses that live below the elevation of the road itself, and just being an engineer, I can tell you that is not great for drainage. So anything that we can do to improve drainage and just maintain drainage in that area, we are going to consider. As Jay mentioned already, we had the opportunities to connect that we have in here with Stony Point Battlefield and Camp Bullowa. Any other recommendations you have? We are open ears. We wanted to have a light touch with wayfinding signs as well. And, we want to protect all the residents with that widened shoulder. One more question, Adrian, I'm going to turn back to you.
Thanks, Jay. So this is a different type of question. We're going to ask you to fill in the blank here. And the sentence begins, and you will complete this sentence. I wish that the Rockland Riverway Trail would have, and please fill in the blank. So some ideas of things that you might want to contemplate, but you should, certainly choose what you're interested in would be, say, benches or a bike repair station, shade, canopy. Those are just some thoughts. But please contribute what you think is important to you. We look forward to seeing your responses. And of course, if there's more than one thing you'd like to see, by all means, just include
Right
both,
about.
2 or 3. Yes. Please don't be shy. We really would love to see what is a priority for you. We'll give it another few seconds and then we'll end this poll. Okay.
Did we get anything, Adrian? I don't know if it's showing up correctly.
I am not seeing anything, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Some of the things that people mentioned, it's hidden on Zoom, but some of the
Okay.
things people mentioned are shade structures at overlooks. Do not want to see paving along segment 3 on the old Erie path.
Yep.
Shade trees, lots of shade trees with the native species.
Thank you. Yes, just to address that one question about paving, we are not proposing any pavement on any of the new trails. The only paving that we're proposing is for widened shoulders. And maybe a paved sidewalk here or there where there's no sidewalks, with that stuff, but nothing along segment 3.
So
Great.
thank you very much for responding. Again, super helpful.
Thank you. All right, so segment 9. This area is pretty fun because it's all along Route 9W. And one of the things that, like I mentioned earlier, is that the DOT does restrict us on what we can do. So this area, we are looking to try to get off of Route 9 as much as possible. Anywhere where we have the opportunity to connect. West Shore Drive is a big one, where we're going to be pulling people off of 9W. We think that that's going to get people closer. It is right along the railroad tracks, so that is an entity that we are going to be working with to make sure that they don't have any issues with that, but it is, again, along a public road, and it will bring people a better aesthetic by having, people down closer to the Hudson River. Anything that we can do in that area to improve the visual appearance of the existing road, we're going to be working on, improved screening, just beautification of the trail, maybe some plantings, flowers, benches, like I mentioned before, all of those things. We're also going to be trying to make certain that things are safe for pedestrians and cyclists who want to connect to some of the other neighborhoods in the area where they have to cross 9W. So at West Shore Drive and Mott Farm Road, we're going to be looking into doing some improvements that we've already discussed with DOT, with signage, crosswalks, and the like in that area. We have a number of connecting trails, Jones Point Path, the 1777 Trail, and as well as the mothball fleet, which I know Mal McLaren from, who started our company, is really excited about trying to get some more information. So anything that we can do to try to drive more knowledge about these items in the area, we will be doing that. We have a number of other items for tourism and attractions that we're going to be trying to put down, as you'll see with our photo here. We're going to be trying to just make sure sight distance, any vegetation that we can trim that's right in the area to improve for not only users of the trail, but for the improved safety for vehicular drivers is going to be significant to this area at our intersections. And segment 10 is an existing trail. This is in Stony Point on the Jones Point path. Again, this is the same entity that runs segment 5 runs this path, and they had identified that, their trail, they don't see a need for major improvements on here, other than maybe some drainage structures and, just making sure that we are cognizant of users on this trail for the e-bikes. One special note on this is that there is no parking right at the trailhead, and the town has had some issues in the past with people parking there anyway in front of people's houses. So we are going to be providing some increased signage and wayfinding back to the existing parking lot right at the start near 9W. So this trail, technically, Jones Point Path starts much further up from where we're showing our segment 11 start. But at that area, we're going to have wayfinding here this whole way. And if there's anything we can do to further improve that, we'd love to hear your feedback. But we're already working with DOT on this and the town to try to improve the signage and the parking accessibility for this, so we don't have issues for the residents to deal with. There are a number of wetlands in the area that have really limited our work in this. Other than, maybe some benches and again, some beautification on this, there's not a lot of structural improvements we're going to be making on this trail, as it's already a great area. One item, I mentioned the e-bikes. I don't think that this area has a lot of e-bike use, just due to the fact that, it doesn't connect to anything in particular for commuting. Couple of other items, really at the other side of this that I'll mention is the Doodletown Trailhead and the TIMP. But in the next segment, on segment 11, I'll really get into the different trails. So segment 11, initially, this was our last segment. We had initially envisioned going all the way up to Bear Mountain Park. The problem is it's not quite safe to direct people up there. Anybody that wants to go up there will have to kind of do it at their own risk with using Route 9W and the existing bike path that's already there. The south entrance road is steep and narrow, and any improvements to the south entrance road would require massive impact to the environment, and nobody that we've talked to really wants to see that happen. So we've done a little bit of a light touch here, and what we did is we pivoted and we're coming into the Iona Island access road to get to the park that's over there. There's a number of other projects that are being developed with different trails through the wetland areas and the marshes, and this will hopefully provide greater access to that. There's also a nice parking lot there that's going to be really nice for people to park on this end. One thing I haven't mentioned is that there are parking opportunities that we're going to be incorporating into this whole project. So there are no impacts to existing residents, and existing residents can park at several areas to access different portions of the trail. We are looking to evaluate the stormwater runoff in certain areas coming from 9W to make sure it doesn't get into the Jones Point path. And our work on this area is really limited to just wayfinding for the most part. That is our last segment. So with this, like I mentioned, just connections to some of the other items in the area. There's a lot of other trailheads that connect to. We are not going to be improving those trailheads or anything along those lines. Our last couple questions here, Adrian, I will turn over to you.
Terrific. Okay, so this question, involves a variety of options. If you've used the trail, which part of the trail have you used before? Segment 1, Orangetown at Sparkhill. Segment 2, Orangetown's Sparkhill to Piermont. Segment 3, Piermont to Nyack. Segment 4, Nyack to Upper Nyack. Segment 5, Nyack Beach State Park to Haverstraw Beach State Park. Segment 6, Haverstraw Beach State Park to West Haverstraw. Segment 7, West Haverstraw to Stony Point at Tompkins Cove. Segment 8, Stony Point. Segment 9, Stony Point at Tompkins Cove to Stony Point at Jones Point. Segment 10, Stony Point at Jones Point Path. And segment 11, Stony Point at Iona Island. So please contribute your answers. We're really interested in hearing what part of the trail you are already familiar with and enjoy using. And of course, please make sure to click submit when you're done. Terrific. So let's just wait for one more minute, see if anyone else responds.
It's great. Nice results.
Yeah, this is really helpful. Okay.
Seems like the first 6 segments are really being used.
Yes. Segment 1 is at 75%. Segment 2 is at 75%. Indeed, all of them are at 1 through 4 are all at 75%. And segment 5, Nyack Beach State Park to Haverstraw Beach State Park, is at 100%. The segment 6 has a lower rate of 25%. Haverstraw Beach State Park to West Haverstraw. Thank you very much. Really
And
great to get your
thank you,
responses.
Adrian. I think this kind of shows that, some of our improvements are really going to be receptive on some of the earlier segments. And, the later segments are not being utilized as much now, and hopefully we can drive traffic to them. Last question, I believe, Adrian.
Yes. So this is your final question for the evening. How would you like to learn about future opportunities to get involved in the Rockland Riverway Trail? And the options are email announcement, newspaper ads, social media posts, and flyers in my local library municipal buildings. Okay, terrific. Thank you very much for responding. Let's just wait another few seconds. It looks like all of you are interested in email announcements, with social media posts also very helpful, and flyers at your local library and municipal buildings being another very helpful way. Newspapers seem to be a bit less effective at getting the information out to you.
Great.
This
Thank
is
you.
great. Really helpful. Thank you.
All right, so for our closing remarks and next steps, I'm going to have Jenna present. Jenna, if you want to add any closing remarks to summarize kind of what we've gone through, and then we'll open it up to questions for everybody.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank you all for attending tonight. So yeah, essentially what we were doing here is just really trying to get as much community feedback as possible. This was a vision a few years back, actually, when the Westchester Riverwalk was being proposed and is now created and it's still being built. And so we felt that Rockland has just as much beauty and trails and opportunity. And so we want to see if we can take the existing 70% of this trail and connect that 30% to make something extremely unique for the county. And we're looking in ways in which we can really demonstrate our pride and our history and everything that Rockland is throughout that trail. So it really is an opportunity for us to get as much feedback as possible. And we want to hear the good, the bad, the concerns, everything. I know there is a question in the Q&A that I think we'll address in a second. So if you have any questions or concerns that you think of, we welcome you to come to the public event in the in-person event at the Palisades Mall in September. And then also just keep in communication. Go to the website, take a look, email us, and just help us, because we want to see if this can become something that we can all be proud of in the end and that we can celebrate together as Rockland residents.
Thank you, Jenna. All right, so we're going to open this up to Q&A. We do have 2 written questions right now from Andrew Goodwillie. Andrew, I'm going to take a crack at answering these. The first one is segment 1, the Route 9W steep hill next to Lamont Earth Observatory is really dangerous and very busy. I cycle in and drive in this area a lot. Cars and trucks speed up and down that hill. Vehicles commonly reach 50 miles per hour. Additionally, hordes of fast city cyclists go up and down that hill every weekend, with cyclists going up to 40 miles an hour downhill. That is very fast. Since the Rockland Riverway Trail is meant to be family friendly, I'm thinking families walking their kids, kids on tricycles, etc. And since the proposed RRT route is going to be on this exact same steep hill portion as the speeding traffic and large groups of cyclists, I cannot see any reasonable and safe solution that could be easily and cheaply implemented. Widened shoulders sound good, but they will be instantly and understandably taken over by large groups of weekend cyclists. So please, would you expand more on your plan to safely separate families and casual RRT trail users from those cyclists and users on Route 9W traffic? Thank you, Andrew. This is exactly what we were talking about, is that we know that there is an issue with some of the higher speed cyclists in other corridors. We specifically brought this up and discussed this with the DOT directly. We are looking to try to improve that with some signage of those widened shoulders. It's also possible we can try to have a segregated area on those segments where we either have specific areas for sidewalks or we have certain types of, they're not flexible bollards, but they're pinned into the asphalt that allow people to walk behind. If a car ends up needing to pull over there or hits it or something, it will not damage that car, but it does provide a separate and distinct path that we can provide for users on either side of the road. It is very difficult in this area, like you mentioned, to get major improvements in due to the fact that we've got those steep slopes and we've got rock, a lot of rock. So there is no easy solution, but we are certainly looking into this. And if you have any other suggestions or thoughts on any other portions of this, we'd be happy to do that, and to look into those. But we do not have a great solution to that just yet, other than what we're already talking about. There was another question as well. Will your team be capturing these questions, including them in a final report? The answer is absolutely. Caroline, you would like to answer this, so if you would like to jump in, that would be great.
Hi, thanks. Yes, we will absolutely be posting a final report of the outreach that we've received to this point on the website, and that will be true throughout the public engagement process throughout the lifespan of this project. Within some time after each of these rounds of outreach, we will have some updates on the site.
Thank you. All right, we have another question from an anonymous attendee that there are concerns about widening shoulders as it will increase speeding of bikes and cars. There's a question on if it would remove trees and increase impermeable surfaces. So we are looking to provide minor widening. We're not looking to provide like 20-foot wide shoulders. We're looking to take shoulders that might be 2 feet wide and bring them to 5 to 6 feet wide. There's other areas where they're 3 to 4 feet wide and bring them up to about 6 feet wide max. While it could certainly increase the speed of certain cyclists, there are certain things that we want to try to we need to do anyway, due to the fact that we have pedestrians using this portion of the trail segments. We are not looking to take down trees. We want to try to minimize that as much as possible. We have not totaled the number of trees that would be disturbed yet, but I can tell you it's very minimal for the size of the project that we're doing. We are also not looking to increase impermeable surfaces greater than necessary. In terms of engineering, the minor increase in impervious is not going to have a detrimental impact to the environment. And we are looking at improving drainage as we go through this project. So there should be net benefit to drainage in and of itself. We will certainly look into other traffic calming measures for bicyclists and cars to make sure that we are not increasing speed in certain areas. We want to improve safety. So we will certainly take that in mind and make sure that we review that as part of our review. And Caroline, I see you would like to also answer this as well.
No, that's a Zoom
Okay.
quirk. My
Okay,
apologies.
sorry. There's another question that I have concerns about screening on Old Erie Path in Piermont and Grandview. I walk that trail daily and cannot see into anybody's house at any time of year. Fences would ruin the aesthetic. So the idea of fences is something that we had proposed, but that we are not like we don't necessarily need to provide. This is something that we are providing as an option for residents if they would like that in their backyard specifically. We walked the trail ourselves and could see in people's backyards quite clearly. We have a lot of photos in our reports that have been released that you should be able to see, and we will be updating with full items where we believe that when I say screening, like trees and vegetation, arborvitae, things like that, that can be low maintenance would be the best item there. Fences are an option if people want a harder barrier. But that's obviously not something that we would prefer if we don't have to, because it does change the aesthetic. Segment 2 and 3. The two segments meet just inside the Piermont municipal boundary at the intersection of the state, and the Joseph P. Clark Rail Trail goes diagonally across the intersection. I like the idea of slightly rerouting the JBC trail so that it is perpendicular to the roads. That is what we will be doing. However, on the walking tour, Jay described that RRT plan may include a recommendation to install a roundabout at this intersection. This seems like a massively over-engineered. Okay, so I'm gonna apologize. We are not proposing any intersection improvements here. All we said was that this was probably a misspoken comment. We are not proposing that we actually redo that intersection and propose a roundabout. We had mentioned when we were talking with DOT that this was a possible solution, but that other people would need to evaluate that intersection directly. The likelihood of that happening is very, very minor chance of that happening due to the fact that it is extremely costly. As you mentioned, it would 100% require eminent domain, and all of the things that we've done with our project approach is to minimize impact to residents. So I can say unequivocally, we are not recommending that a roundabout be done. We are recommending that the town look into additional improvements. We are looking right now directly, as you mentioned, we are rerouting that trail intersection to just be at 90 degrees with improved sidewalks and signage, and possibly flashing lights with push button activation so that people can safely cross the trail. But we are not going to propose a specific major recommendation further. That's out of the scope of this project. Thank you. Another question is, are we going to do any removal of invasive species such as vines and Japanese knotweed and instead plant native species, pollinator pathways, etc.? That is a great question. And it is something that I will be bringing up to our landscape architect as we go through to that portion. Certainly in other areas, like in segment 3, for example, if this was a concern, we can certainly look into trying to do that. We very much encourage and are pretty much required to use native species, pollinators in our trail. I know that climate change is difficult, and it is something that we struggle with from an engineering perspective to make sure we hit all of the required information with this. But this is absolutely something that we can look into in certain trail segments. A lot of the other segments, like segment 5 and segment 10, which really have very large swaths of forest, we are not going to be touching that, just due to the fact that it would require a major change and increase to the project that I don't think we want to do. For any of the other segments where we'd be looking into planting things, if there's obviously something that's obvious, like decrepit and things like that, we will have notes on our drawings to take those out and to supplement only with new stuff. But I would say segment 3 is really the biggest area that could benefit to removal of invasive species. Again, that's going to be up to discussion with the residents of that area. We have another question from Andrew. So what is the chance of simply staggering the sequencing of the existing traffic lights and added trigger crosswalks at that intersection? We are looking to add triggered crosswalks to that intersection, Andrew, and we're looking into the lights, but for this intersection particularly, we can't fit a major improvement into that intersection with the lights into our schedule. This intersection in particular requires too much coordination due to the 3 different major agencies, the 2 different towns and the DOT that would have to weigh in on it. So it is very difficult for us to get a major impact, a major change to that intersection done. But one of the things that we're considering is recommending changing of the traffic light timing and any recommendations with that, we would push to those municipalities and try to coordinate for them to be able to do that in the future, if that makes sense. Could we have some fun things for kids like swings with a nature aesthetic? That is a great recommendation, and I think that we can look into that. There are several parks that we're going through that would be likely good spot for that, as well as areas like on segment 5 and segment 10 where we could possibly include in some existing cleared areas some small swing sets or interactive displays. I know I take my kids at certain different trails and they have like staggered rocks and things like that for the kids to my kids love to jump on those things. So that is definitely something we could consider. Thank you for the recommendation. Swings from trees. Yes, I understand. Yeah, we can certainly look into this. I have to work with Jenna. Jenna, I don't know if you want to opine on this as far as safety goes with things like that. I know that anything has to be swings from trees generally do not have safety standards. So it might be a little bit more difficult. Whereas anything that gets put, there's a lot of laws that govern this with, rubber mulch and things like that. So I'm not sure about swings from trees for those things, but, Jenna, if you want to opine on something like that here, that would be great.
I love the idea because, we really want to make sure that we're connecting our residents with nature and being completely mindful that that is the built environment around us. And that's why we're
Mhm.
celebrating it with a trail. As far as swings, again, we don't want to put anybody at risk for, injury or anything like that. But we were thinking more like possible pollinator gardens around some of these paths or a lot of signage and wayfinding where we kind of make it interactive. So there's different stations throughout the path where like kids can actually be encouraged and excited to go to the next part of the path to learn a little bit more, to kind of answer a question and things like that. So we do kind of see it as it's kind of quote unquote tactical urbanism where we kind of create little sections where it's really meant for kids in a safe space. But we can look into trees from swings, but again, we want to make sure that everybody is safe when they're enjoying the path.
Thank you. And some of the like what I call a low cope like a thing, lower impact items like maybe small timber based, ground based that aren't going to have safety concerns associated with them are items that we can look to include in some of those garden areas because like you mentioned, having the kids be entertained makes the parents much happier. It's a better experience for everybody. Andrew, thank you, John. Changing the timing of those traffic lights is exactly what I meant when asking about staggering the sequencing. Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure you weren't talking about like the locations of them. So yes, that is something that we are going to look into. That is all the questions we have up there now. Does anybody have anything final that they want to add? Jay, I know I had asked you to look through some of the questions that we had gotten on some of our workshops. Do you want to take a minute to present some of those?
No, I don't think I need to present on those. I think we've
Cover
answered
them?
covered them in the Q&A. Uh, Jen opined on the county's public involvement on the project, and that
Great.
constitutes a majority of the questions.
Fantastic. All right. Oh, did we get one more? Oh, just thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you all as well for attending. Jenna, you have any last words before we conclude?
No, thank you again. I really appreciate hearing the things, we're not afraid to hear the things we don't want to hear because, again, we're
Yeah.
not going to do something that the public does not want. So, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're going to keep coming out to the public and making sure that if we are able to execute something like this, that we really do have buy-in and everyone feels like they've been a part of creating it for us. So, thank you for your comments and your questions, and I do look forward to seeing you and hopefully you bring more people to the in-person event so we can have more discussion.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone again for attending. Have a great evening.